إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. أما بعد, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His holy book, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this one ayah, one sentence, says tremendous things about war and peace. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I give you permission, fight in the way of Allah those who fight you. There's no word of jihad here. It's not about struggle. It's fight. There's no confusion. We're talking about physical, military fight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I give fight in my way. وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا. Fight those who fight you, but He's qualifying as to who you can fight. He's saying fight in the way of Allah, but fight those who fight you, but do not transgress. That's enough. You don't need books. You don't need courses in the ethics of warfare. It very clearly tells you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made war a defensive action in the Islamic ethics. You're allowed to fight. We are not a pacifist faith. But we are allowed to fight only those who fight us first. And it's important that we understand this word. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allah la yuhibbul muqtadin. I do not love those who transgress, who pass the limits, and who aggress. You can understand this in many ways. Many Muslim translators have translated this as saying Allah does not love those who are aggressive, who aggress, who are the first to initiate conflict. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says that I have defined limits, and no matter what, you do not cross these limits. The default status in Islam is that war is not permitted. However, under certain conditions, when you are attacked, when you are driven away from your homes, and when you are prevented from practicing your faith, you are permitted to use force, but within limits. And those limits are defined in various ayahs of the Quran and also in various traditions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also in the Sunnah we have seen this, as his practice has been, as to what are these ethics of warfare. And we all know this. Even children nowadays in 5th, 6th grades can tell you, even non-Muslim kids can now tell you what are the ethical limits of warfare in the Islamic tradition. You do not target non-combatants, you do not target women and children, you do not target old people, you do not target the environment. You don't poison wells, you don't poison rivers, you don't ruin the environment, you don't attack the earth. The purpose of use of force is only to defend yourself from your aggressors. But unfortunately, it appears today as if the Muslim world has declared war on the entire world, but more importantly on itself. One of the most bizarre things that I, as a student of war and politics, of international relations, diplomacy, find that the whole world is bombing a Muslim country. Iraq and Syria, everybody bombs it. It's tough to remember which countries have not bombed that country. Among Muslim countries too. There was a time when the Jordanian king was excited about bombing it. We saw all the videos, and the United Arab Emirates sent air forces, and Saudi Arabia has now air forces attacking everybody from Russia to the United States, France, so on and so forth. We seem to be living in an era of war. Let me tell you some statistics which will have a sobering effect on you. Since 9/11, I feel that my life has been hijacked by 9/11. And I've been doing this in my sleep. I get up in the middle of the night, and first thing, even before someone tells me who is on the phone, I say, Islam is a religion of peace. Because it's some reporter asking me about some terrorist act somewhere. Otherwise, why would he call me in the middle of the night? Even before I wake up, I say that. And now I don't even believe it myself, because I'm thinking, when I'm giving a lecture, when I'm giving a speech, when I'm on TV, while I'm saying that Islam is a religious peace, there is some Muslim brother out there who's trying to prove me wrong. And what is interesting is that actions always speak louder than words. I can speak and scream at the top of my voice till I turn blue in my face that Islam is indeed a religion of peace. One person has to do one action, it completely erases the impact, or even the authenticity, or even the conviction in my voice of those claims. Let me just give you some statistics since March 22nd, the attack on Brussels. In the attack on Brussels, 35 people died and nearly 230 were injured on the 22nd of March. But what people don't realize is on that same day people were killed in Bangladesh, and within a few hours in Iraq. 6 people died. Nearly every day since that day there have been casualties, death casualties, not just injuries. There have been one or two on a daily basis, but some of the big ones are in Yemen. On the 25th of March, 25 killed, 15 injured by 3 Al-Qaeda suicide bombers. 2 days after that in Iraq, in Iskandariya, 41 dead, 105 injured. And then a few days after that, just 2 days after that, in Lahore, 74 dead, 362 injured. And then 2 days after that in Somalia, 9 dead, 10 injured. And then 2 days after that in Palmyra, 40 dead. I don't know how the injured casualty is 0, but apparently everybody died. Then Raqqa 1, then Nasiriyah 14, and Difa, and yesterday in Aleppo 18 dead and 70 injured. Now all of this in the last 30 days. In the last 30 days, over 720 people have died in the Muslim world, except about the 35 and 36, one in Glasgow in Europe. There have been more than 90 attacks, 28 of them suicide attacks, 3,000 injured. All of this happened in the last 30 days. When I was collecting this data, I found that there are many websites now who keep record. So if you go and search people who died as a result of Muslim terrorism, whatever you want to use the word, Islamic radicalism, etc., you will find that one of the most accurate websites and which keeps the most detailed information is a website, its title is Religion of Peace. The name of the website is Religion of Peace, and all it does is keep track of the attacks by Muslims, not war. It's just acts which, at least in the Western media, are defined as terrorism, which is targeting innocent, unarmed civilians for the purpose of political. This is unbelievable, because with each action there are consequences. And let me tell you, for example, with the attack on Brussels, I've been racking my head, 35 people killed, over 200 injured. What benefit does it do to anybody? But do you know what is happening as a result of that? The European rally to embrace refugees from Syria and Iraq was shut down. As a result of that, hundreds of thousands of people who could have found a place where they could have lived peacefully, where they could have protection for their children, where they could safely imagine a future for their children, has now been cut off. Germany, for economic purposes, needed a lot of refugees. Germany needs 1 million refugees at least. And it was willing to take in about 800,000 Syrians. But these kind of actions turns the public opinion so much against Islam and so much against Muslims that those refugees will be shut down and sent home. Even though it's not the fault of refugees, since 9/11, nearly 700,000 Muslim refugees have come to the West, and less than 6 have been involved in terrorist activities. Less than 6 out of 700,000. In this country, children below the age of 10 kill more people than that. You do know that children below the age of 10 have killed more people in America than Muslims have since 9/11, after 9/11. But yet the image and the impression that such events cause is far more devastating. It has no real impact except to give a real bad name to Muslims and Islam. And if you think that it is not going to affect us directly, let me tell you, it's going to alienate the next generation of Muslims. People who are born here, kids who are growing up here, who have to face this every day in schools and at workplace, they are moving away. May God forgive them. May God bring them back. They're moving away from their religion. It is now that I've also started interacting with young Muslim children, that I find young Muslim kids telling me that they are atheists. As long as their parents, as long as they are captives or prisoners in their homes by their parents, they are willing to go to the masjid and pray. When they are on their own, what are they doing? They're moving away from the faith because they're unable to defend their culture and their civilization because of actions like this. I want to talk about a specific event that happened in Lahore, which is, to me, a very frightening event. It happened in Lahore on, the date was 27th of March, it was Easter. And on that day, a person wearing a suicide vest walked into a public park, walked close to a place where children were playing. Children who are going up and down the slide. So he stood near the slide of the children, so that he clearly targeted children. He wanted to have the maximum damage against children. And he blew himself up, killing 74, mostly women and children. And the assumption was that he's targeting Christians because Christians were out there celebrating Easter. Of course, Pakistan is a vastly majority is Muslim country, so nearly 60 of the victims were Muslims. But that doesn't matter. What is critical is to see the viciousness, the deep-seated evil that a person probably had 1 hour since the time he wore the vest and he blew himself up. 1 hour to think, and all he did was to position himself so that he could have the maximum impact against children and women. Non-combatants, the very thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you shall not transgress. In order to be successful as a suicide bomber, you have to first kill yourself. Really, physically, and then you're successful. But metaphysically, you can't be an Islamic suicide bomber because before you commit such an act, you have already left the deen. Because there is no footnote nowhere in the Quran or the Hadith literature which says that there are some exemptions for these rules of the ethics of warfare. Imam Ali had a wonderful quote. He said, I would rather lose the battles fighting justly rather than win, even if my cause is just, by fighting unjustly. So just because in every war there are two things which are ethically important, the cause and the means. Just because your cause is justifiable, it doesn't mean it allows you any and every means of achieving those goals. Both the cause as well as the method by which you approach the cause will have to be just. I saw a very interesting meme on Facebook where someone says, just because you say Bismillah, it doesn't mean that whiskey becomes halal. And therefore, if you just say Allahu Akbar, it doesn't mean that suicide bombing becomes okay. So on that day, this person went there and did it. But it is enormous targeting of minorities who are your dhimmi, your responsibility. You're supposed to be protecting them, not targeting them. People say this is the same thing as in what happened in Brussels, etc. No, it's very different. In Brussels, members of marginalized victims of racism, a minority community who is targeting a majority in spite of the efforts of the state. Part of the blame is in the incompetence of the government. incompetence in integrating the population of Muslims in Belgium, incompetence in providing security to their own people. So what happened in Brussels was a minority, but what happened in Lahore is the opposite. It's a member of the majority community, whose community members rule that country, whose community members are part of the police and security forces. They are targeting a minority. Think about it on your way home and try to digest. The difference is huge. What I'm trying to say is in the Lahore attack, everybody in the country is culpable. Because the government is of the majority, the police is of the majority, the army is of the majority, yet they're targeting minorities on their festival. But something else was happening in Pakistan on that day. A few hundred miles away in the city of Islamabad, people were protesting. Thousands of people were out there demanding that the government declare a murderer as a martyr. Muqtedar Khan was a police officer who killed the governor of Lahore because some ulama said that he had committed blasphemy. All that the governor of Lahore wanted to do was he wanted to protect a Christian woman who was accused of committing blasphemy from being executed. And so they declared him as a blasphemer, and this police officer, whose job was to protect the governor, shot and killed the governor. It's amazing. Did you know at the height of post 9/11, one of the personal bodyguards of George W. Bush was an Arab? Personal bodyguard, not only in the White House, but when Bush used to be on his ranch, his brother used to be there protecting Bush. The way we came to know about this is when he took a flight from DC to Miami with his guns. And of course, you know what happened, they took him aside, he's an Arab, and so it hit the media. But imagine this is violation of amana, your function, your duty, you're killing the person you're supposed to protect. And then thousands of people. But this is it, listen very carefully. The people who came out to demand that this murderer be declared as a saint and a martyr were people who belong to the supposedly most moderate and most peaceful community of Pakistan, the Barelvi group of Sufi Muslims. On the same day that there is a terrorist act taking place, those many people didn't show up to protest the murder. They are claiming that over 300,000 people protested. I don't see 300,000 people standing up and protesting against terror anywhere in the Muslim world. But there are 300,000 people coming and rioting in the city and standing in protest and demanding that a murderer be declared a hero. What message are we sending to our own children? Imagine yourself, you have a daughter and you're looking for a husband, and a wonderful doctor from back home comes over and says, oh my God, I've cleared the USFMG exam, I've already got a residency at University of Maryland, I'm a good Muslim, and by the way, I also killed 4 Christians. Will you give your daughter to that man? Will you say you are a mujahid? You say, oh, by the way, I murdered a guy who said bad things about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I cut his neck off. You can see it on my YouTube video. Would you marry your daughter to this person? No. But you will declare him a saint? It's a strange thing. Ask yourself, if a man comes and tells you, I performed 30 umrahs, and I did this hajj, and I memorized the Quran, and I give 20% of my salary in sadaqah, you will marry him. And of course you may say, after marriage, brother, you'll need more money. Right? So that is what I want you to think about, the ethics of this person. How can we glorify this? The Prophet ﷺ said something so profound. I don't understand why we have these traditions and defend them when we don't lose it. He said, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Wallahi la yumin, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la yumin. He swore 3 times by God. You know, there's nearly, if you add all the traditions, there are nearly 70,000 hadith collections that we have. Among the Sahih, there are 4,000. Do you know how many hadiths start with the Prophet ﷺ swearing? Very few. And you know how many of them start with him swearing 3 times by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Wallahi, wallahi, wallahi. And this is what he said. Wallahi la'ud. By God, you are not a believer. by God, you are not a believer. By God, you are not a believer. And his companion said, وَمَنْ يَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ? And who is this person, Ya Allah? Rasulullah, and Rasulullah says, الَّذِي لَا يَعْمَنُ جَارُهُ بِوَائِخَهُ. He says that he is that person from whose evil his neighbor is not safe. This is very important. Rasulullah is saying that if your neighbor is not safe from your evil, by God you are not a Muslim, by God you are not a believer, by God you are not a believer. And the Sahaba, may Allah be very pleased with them, they did such a great job. They would not just stop at that. They would get clarity. They said, what do you mean by evil of? And the Prophet ﷺ said, not just violence, even your evil eye. Even if you envy your neighbor, if you are jealous of your neighbor, if you have a bad eye on his property. It's also the 10th commandment in the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not envy your neighbor and his wife, etc. If you have a bad eye on your neighbor, if your neighbor is not safe from you, you are not a Muslim. What more do we need to tell? The reason why these things happen is, I guarantee you that all the people who do these bad things in the name of Islam probably never heard this hadith and this tradition. And the reason why they did not hear this tradition is because we are not using Islam to teach ethics to our people. We are not teaching Islam so that our hearts are pure and we learn to live. We are teaching Islamic sources to win arguments in political positions which we have already taken for political reasons. You understand? We have taken political positions for political reasons. Now we'll go and shop in Islamic sources, looking for those things that will justify a position that we have already made. So we are not informed, we are not shaped by Islam, we are just using it. It's like Islam has become like a jacket or a tie. Which word should I wear today? I want to make a powerful argument about charity in Islam. Brother, if you're going to make a lecture about charity in Islam, then why don't you dress a bit more humbly? So you wear a different dress. It makes you look humble. It's like that. Ayat and hadith have become like that. They are not constitutive. The rules will change you. If you play chess, rules shape the identity. If you say which one is the knight is the one which goes 2.5 steps. The rule gives the knight its identity. Those are called constitutive values. Islam should be that to you. Islamic values should shape your identity, not become a tool in your toolbox of politics. The Prophet ﷺ anticipated this. The Prophet ﷺ anticipated this, and this is what he said about people like this, who commit suicide attacks, who give Islam a bad name. You know, some of these people, when they left Europe to join, they bought books like Islam for Dummies before they got on a plane, which means they didn't even know anything about Islam, yet they were launching themselves for jihad. Subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ said, in the traditional classical literature, people said he meant the Khawarij when he talked about this, but he didn't use the word Khawarij. People thought that this was about Khawarij, but apparently I think there are going to be many neo-Khawarij in our history, unfortunately. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. There will be division and sectarianism in my nation. And you know what sectarianism is, Shia, Sunni fight, etc. You can see that across in Syria, Yemen, etc. There will be division, ikhtilaf. There will be division and sectarianism in my nation. And there will come a people with beautiful words and evil deeds. This is amazing. The Prophet ﷺ saying there will be a people in my ummah who will have beautiful words and they will have evil deeds. They will recite the Quran, but it will not pass beyond their throats. You must understand that all these things that we attach to piety of Islam, such as having beautiful khairat of the Quran or praying all the time, those are not proof of Iman. Even the munafiq used to pray with the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, they will leave the religion like an arrow leaves. Arrows don't come back. They're not like a boomerang which come back. Once they leave, they leave. He said, they have left the deen. Prophet said, they will never ever return. They are the worst of creation. They are the worst of creation. The Prophet ﷺ actually curses these people who say beautiful things from the Quran but do evil things. They are the worst of creation. Blessed are those who fight them and are killed by them. Blessed are those who fight them and are killed by them. They call to the book of Allah, but they have nothing to do with it. Whoever fights them is better to Allah than most of them. When this is a call to wage jihad against jihadis. People who say, recite the Quran but do evil deeds. They are the worst of creation. And when the Prophet ﷺ is talking about the neighbor, he says if your neighbor is not safe, he is not qualifying the neighbor. He's not saying the neighbor has to be only a Muslim to be safe from you. Doesn't matter whether the neighbor is Muslim or non-Muslim, a Sunni or a Shia, white or black. As long as he's your neighbor, he must be safe from your evil. The Prophet ﷺ, one day Aisha radiallahu anha asked the Prophet ﷺ, I had some extra food left, what should I do with it? So he said, give it to the neighbor. And may Allah be pleased with her. The way she framed her next question was incredible. In philosophy, you would call it, she's trying to define categorical imperative. She didn't say which neighbor. She said, who is my neighbor? Like if you say which neighbor, then he could have said this one or that one, right? But she didn't ask the question like that. She said, who is my neighbor? Therefore, enabling us now to give meaning to the word neighbor in all the other traditions of the Prophet ﷺ in the Quran. And the Prophet ﷺ said, your neighbor is one whose door is closest to your door. You can build a theory of citizenship based on this hadith. You can't be a citizen, you can't be part of a community. You can't be a believer if your neighbor is not safe from your evil intentions and your evil actions. The Prophet ﷺ says, لا يدخل الجنة من لا يأمن جاره ضائقه. The Prophet ﷺ says, may Allah protect us from this, that he will never enter heaven from whose evil his neighbor is not safe. I have said what I have said, and may Allah forgive me and all of you. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The last 2 days I was in Washington attending a conference which is called as Countering Violent Extremism. The Secretary of Homeland Security was also there, and he said some very nice things about Muslims. But let me give you some data if you think that Muslims are also free from all that is going on. In 2015 alone, Muslims have killed 19 people in the United States through terrorist activities. The two most prominent one in Tennessee and one in San Bernardino in California. The casualties were 19. There were 19 dead, 19 injured. But 2015, after 9/11, is the worst year when it comes to arrests. More than 61 Muslims were arrested for supporting ISIS in some way or the other. More than 61. And all of them, the average age of these Muslims who were arrested in the US is 26. Young people. 26. Most of them radicalized by what's going on the internet, which means that even if they attend the masajid are not dealing with the questions that are troubling them. Last year, a 19-year-old kid called Hamza Khan, his parents were from India, tried to get on a plane with his brother and sister, 17 and 16 years old. They were all going to join ISIS. 19, 17, and 16. The police and the FBI obviously arrested him. They didn't charge the younger brother and sister because they felt that the elder brother had manipulated his own siblings. But I think this week Muqtedar Khan has been sentenced to prison for 15 years. And after that, when he comes out, when he'll be 35, he has to be monitored for 15 more years, etc. But what is interesting is that this 18-year-old kid decided to join ISIS and then took a job to raise money, and when he had saved about $3,000, he could buy 3 tickets. He got on a plane. Most of the stories are like that. There are a few American Muslims who have actually gone and died. The stories are so scary when you actually go into individual stories. One Muslim kid went on a vacation. He told his parents, I'm going on vacation to Europe. And the parents are not worried. When several months later, the police show up at his house to say that your son has now left ISIS and has joined the Kurdish, and he has surrendered himself. He's the first defector from ISIS. And the government now is in a dilemma whether they should prosecute him as a terrorist or make him a spokesman. So he can go around telling them how horrible it is to work or be part of ISIS. But what is scary to me is that in this country, there is, at the moment, there is no method by which we can de-radicalize children who are willing to join. In spite of that, there are so many parents who are coming to the FBI and telling them that I think my son or my daughter is going to join. 70% of everybody, those who have gone from the US are male. Very shocking that there is a component of women also now who are joining. ISIS is Al-Qaeda 2.0. Only men volunteered for Al-Qaeda, but now you see women volunteering for ISIS too, and children, most of them in the mid-teens. We have to do something about this. You can't just put your head in the snow and deny it and come up. Muslims have spent so much energy in constructing conspiracy theories to explain away reality. It is unbelievable. You know, all Muslims would be the greatest novelists and poets in the world. They should write those stories down and you will make millions of dollars in fiction category. It doesn't matter whether a cricket match is lost or a battle is lost. The whole energy is consumed. It's like saying, I come and tell you that I saw your son buying drugs, and you spend the rest of your life maligning me. And say, oh, Muqtedar, he's not, his Quran is not good, his Arabic is not good, he's from India, he's a kafir, he talks to the US government, blah, blah, blah. Spend your whole life constructing imaginary theory while your son is fully addicted. Instead of that, go and check out first whether he's addicted or not. And if he is, then go and find help. Instead of, that's how we are dealing with this situation. That there is a complete denial that there is a problem. And once the problem shows up at our doorstep, then we don't. Believe it or not, you just need one crazy Muslim to put Donald Trump in the White House in October. And then, or even Ted Cruz, it will undermine our civil liberties. The reasons why many people came to this country to make money and become famous and live happily, pursuing the goals of materialism, all of that will be taken away. All of that will go away, and people have to be very, very careful as to why we do not do these things. Let me tell you certain things which are very scary that are happening. One of the things that has happened is that the public opinion is shifting so much against Islam and Muslims that it becomes very difficult to bring it back. And that leads to established, subtle, undetectable Islamophobia. For you when you're applying for jobs, when your children are going to school, when you are just in the marketplace trying to get a loan, trying to get on a plane, trying to get a job in critical positions and sensitive positions. No, all of that will become, you may not be able to detect it, but there will be a subtle bias. Why take the chance? Do you want to live in a world where you're assumed to be guilty until you prove that you're innocent? And you know it takes a whole lifetime to prove that you're innocent. It's only when you die that you'll find out that you are innocent. Because as long as you're alive, you could do something tomorrow. So this assumption that you are guilty until proven innocent is a never-ending thing. It's very important that you as a community in every masajid gets together and tries to find ways in which you can integrate your youth, especially between the ages of 15, 16, and 30. It is very important that you keep track of what they are doing, what they are thinking, how they are dealing with politics. All it needs is one kid from your community and then your painted God. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He guides us. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is as if Allah has given us the greatest of gifts that He has ever given humanity, which is the message of Islam, the Quran. He has sent our Prophet as mercy to all of humanity, and yet we do not benefit from that mercy, nor do we send it as mercy to others. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives wisdom, He gives security, He gives understanding and safety to all Muslims. He puts compassion and understanding in the hearts of others so they can understand the dilemmas and challenges that Muslims are facing today, worldwide and at home. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.